sort of killing anything, are you?
Yeah, but it's a farce. I mean, why would you breed foxes if you want to kill vermin? They're not vermin. It's just done for sport. I have no idea how horrific it was. And just the arrogance of them. They thought they were supreme.
Sort of boasting about it?
Well, the actual huntsmen didn't boast about it because they wouldn't talk to the mere likes of the yokels. It was just the people who worked for them would tell stories in the pub. And there were people called stopper-uppers who go and stop up the holes. You know, it was well known. And there was also beagle hunting in the area. But I don't think the beagles were very successful. I don't think they caught very much. But
right. Well, that doesn't surprise me. Thank you, Georgie. Just moving on, because I've also got Belle on the line in Bath. Hello, Belle.
Oh, good morning. Hello.
Good morning.
Yeah, I would just like to highlight to everybody this morning that hunts are preparing, possibly today and for the coming few months. They're cub hunting early in the morning. Although it could happen at any time of the day, they're training the foxhounds to pursue foxes, and thousands and thousands of small fox cubs are being killed right now as we speak. So, you know, the intention... I receive notifications through various organisations that I'm affiliated with on the number of prosecutions in the courts every week. I mean, it's prolific, the amount of people that have by now acquired criminal convictions.
That's a good thing that they're being sort of, you know, prosecuted, whereas in the past that wouldn't have been the case.
Well, you know, to be honest, if the Hunting Act of 2004 was, if they were better prepared for any exploitation of loopholes within that law, you know, we wouldn't be talking about the subject now. That needs to be addressed. And can I just say that the analogy with burglary, I agree with Matt Longman, because obviously, you know, he has all the statistics in front of him. And what the hunting world are trying to get away with saying is that supposing a burglar was caught walking in the middle of the night by the police and armed with all the tools of the trade, and then his excuse is, well, I was just taking a walk. You know, it's so blatantly obvious that everything they do to prepare when they go out, pursuing foxes, is the intention is clear.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I haven't been on a hunt, so I can't be categorical there, but I'm sure it definitely does happen. Belle, thank you very much for calling. The music means we must move on. Coming up...
recognise it is a challenging time for the high street, and it's also why we are putting more money.
The high street fashion giant River Island is on the brink of collapse. We'll bring you the very latest. Plus...
the appalling scenes in Gaza are unrelenting. And I know the British people are sickened by what is happening. It is a humanitarian catastrophe, and it must go.
Prime Minister speaking about Gaza after more than 200 MPs sent him a letter. But after the news...
we definitely need to get rid of triple lock because it's just unaffordable in the long run. Everybody knows that. But politically, it's a very difficult message to give to pensioners.
Is it time to scrap the triple lock after the news?
On your radio, on the LBC app, and...
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 6 o'clock, Donald Trump is expected to spend much of his first day in Scotland on the golf course he owns in Ayrshire. He had praise for the Prime Minister when he touched down at Prestwick Airport last night.
I like your Prime Minister. He's slightly more liberal than I am, as you've probably heard. But he's a good man. He got a trade deal done. On immigration, you better get your act together.
US President's in the country on a 4-day visit and is expected to visit both his golf clubs. He's also due to hold informal talks with Sir Keir Starmer. The Prime Minister has suggested the UK will play a role in delivering aid to Gaza after Israel said it would allow foreign countries to do so. Yesterday, more than a third of MPs wrote an open letter urging him to follow France in recognising a Palestinian state. But Sir Keir Starmer says while that is a step on the pathway to peace in the region, it can't happen yet.
Recognition of a Palestinian state has to be one of those steps, but it must be part of a wider plan, which ultimately results in a two-state solution and lasting security for Palestinians and Israel.
Israel says the move would reward terror. A man's due to appear in court charged with the deaths of 2 people following a fire at their home on Merseyside. 46-year-old Lee Owens, of no fixed abode, is accused of murder and arson with intent to endanger life. He was arrested by police investigating the deaths in St Helens. Resident doctors in England are beginning a second day of strikes as part of their 5-day walkout over pay. Up to 50,000 members of the British Medical Association are walking out. The government says it can't be any more generous than it has been already. And councils in England are going to be relieved from footing the bill for recycling items such as milk bottles, cereal boxes and soup tins. They'll have access to a share of £1.1 billion raised by a levy on businesses to pay towards the cost of recycling the packaging they use. Companies will start paying fees from November. LBC weather, a cloudy day with some scattered showers. These will clear eastwards for most later. Patchy rain for northwest Scotland by this evening, a high of 25 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Amelia Cox.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Henry Riley.
3 minutes past 6 is the time. Good morning. You're listening to Early Breakfast with me, Henry Riley, here on LBC. Matthew Wright's with you for your weekend breakfast from 7 o'clock. This hour, the IMF have issued a pretty stark warning to Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, basically saying you've got a choice of 3 things. You either need to scrap the triple lock, which is scheduled to cost £15.5 billion by 2030. You can scrap the triple lock, you can start charging for NHS appointments, or you have to raise taxes. That is what the IMF are effectively saying to Rachel Reeves, is the dilemma that she is going through at the moment. Rachel Reeves will have to break Labour's manifesto pledge not to increase taxes on working people or scrap the state pension triple lock to relieve pressures on public finances. The IMF, the International Monetary Fund, have said. They have said the UK needs to take difficult decisions to address new expenditure pressures and rebuild fiscal buffers. The IMF said an alternative to raising VAT, income tax or national insurance, if the Chancellor is not prepared to do that, is going to be to scrap the triple lock or charging wealthier people to use the NHS. My question to you this hour is, if you have that particular choice, either raising taxes or scrapping the triple lock and asking wealthier people to pay for the NHS, which one do you go for? 0345 6060 973 is the number to call. The triple lock at the moment is simply unsustainable. It was done with the best of intentions. Pensioner poverty has been a huge issue in the UK for many years, and I accept that, but to a great extent that has been alleviated. We should, of course, help pensioners who are in need, and that's why we have pension credit, and that is why you have I suppose it's been expanded now, but the winter fuel payment for people who clearly need it, and I do understand that, and I think in a lot of cases, of course, you need pensioners to be able to pay their heating bills, and their fuel bills. That is the very least. But if you are under 40 in this country at the moment, you simply cannot afford to save for your pension in a lot of cases. You can't afford to get on the housing ladder. It would have cost 3 times your average salary in the 1990s. Now, it's close to 9 times your average salary. So people haven't got any money to save for their pension. How much, by the way, the Interactive Investor estimate, in order to have a comfortable retirement, you need to have saved over £1 million if you're in your sort of 20s or 30s. That's how much you're going to have to save if you're in your 20s or 30s. You're going to have to save £1 million through, obviously, state pension, some of that, your private pension, some of that, and then if you have a sort of pension scheme with your employer as well. But, I mean, for people like me, I'm in my late 20s, I don't think there's any way I'm going to get a state pension, because we're going to have to head to a position where it's going to have to be means tested to some extent. I don't think it will be the universal benefits, entitlement, call it what you want, that it is now. So which government is going to be brave enough to talk openly about the triple lock? The problem is, when you have the Pensions Commission meeting now and talking about the auto-enrolment process with work, which is a good way of making people save, and I think it's a really good thing. I think there's more that can be done with women and the self-employed and ethnic minorities who traditionally don't have the same pension entitlement because of the way it works, and I get that, and that's a very good thing. Also, increasing the pension age, it's going to have to go up, right? It's going up between 2026 and 2028, and it is going to have to go up, and I understand that, and I think that's to some extent fair enough. But really, by the time I get to retire, it's probably going to be well into its 70s, isn't it? 74, it could even be projected to rise to, I read. So I don't think we've got much option other than to look at the pensions triple lock and realise that we haven't got the money for it. And I know that's a far from ideal situation to be in. And I know that some European countries pay a far more generous pension than we do, but I can't really see an alternative. Do you think the alternative, as the IMF say, is if you don't scrap the triple lock, or you can look at tax rises, i.e. you break your manifesto pledge, or you end up charging wealthy people to use the NHS? What would you do if you were in the shoes of Rachel Reeves? 0345 6060 973 is the number to call. And if you do want to make a change to pensions, it doesn't come in overnight, right? It takes sort of 10 years. It takes a certain amount of notice for the market to adjust and for people to be able to put provisions in place, the government and employers. If you're a government, what incentive have you got to scrap the triple lock? The Labour government at the moment, according to opinion polls, is about as popular as toothache. So why you'd scrap the triple lock and take all of the political flack for it, and then if you lose the next election, it's basically a gift for the Conservatives or Reform or whoever wins, if Labour do lose, because they say, well, we didn't decide to scrap the triple lock, it was Labour. So no one wants to take on the responsibility of scrapping the triple lock because they know they're going to get no political credit for it. So coming back to this main point this morning from the IMF, of those choices, which would you do? Would you raise taxes, VAT, income tax or national insurance, charge for the NHS, or ditch the pensions triple lock? Because once you start charging for the NHS and saying, oh, it's just for wealthier people, I'm sure on sort of, glancing at it, that looks very appealing. Well, the wealthy can afford to take the NHS, that's fine, charge them. I think once you start bringing in charging, it creeps in, doesn't it? And before you know it, the threshold gets lowered and we all start getting charged for the NHS. But what would you do if you were in the shoes of Rachel Reeves? 0345 6060 973 is the number to call. On the subject of the economy, the Chancellor Rachel Reeves spoke with LBC yesterday. She spoke with our Scotland's political editor, Gina Davison.
Well, a government doesn't get to choose in its inheritance, and the economy that this Labour government inherited was one that had barely grown for 14 years, the public finances in a total mess, and public services on their knees after 14 years of Conservative government and 2 decades of SNP government here in Scotland. We are turning those things around. Our public finances are now on a firm footing. We put £29 billion into our NHS and a record settlement for the Scottish Government, record since devolution, with an additional £9 billion. And these investments we're putting into Scotland are about supporting jobs now, but also driving growth and prosperity for the future with those investments in clean energy, in defence, and also in our AI capabilities, so that we can lead the world in some of those jobs and industries of the future, from clean energy to tech to defence.
I thought it was interesting on Tom Swarbrick's programme earlier on this week. They had Dale Vince on, who's the chairman of Forest Green Rovers, founder of Ecotricity, but more importantly, he's a Labour donor, and he had this to say about the triple lock.
But I think
the triple lock.
What about the triple lock?
Why are we paying £15 billion a year by 2030, the OBR said, for a triple lock that is paid without heed to people's incomes?
Well, I would look at that as well, Tom. And actually, I think reform of benefits generally, because in this Parliament is reckoned to reach the same cost, I think, as our defence budget. It'll have tripled in 20 years or something. So we have to look at benefits across the board and the triple lock and say, well, actually, are these things affordable? Are they fair, actually, in the country that we live in?
What do you think they are fair? Do you think the triple lock in particular, let's go to that because it's very expensive and very controversial. Do you think it's fair to pay better? No,
I don't. No, I don't actually. Not when you look at the poverty in our country and the absolute need in other parts of our society. And it goes back to the point of your call, right? The Tories have been in power for a long time, and they've been very generous towards older people. I think the triple lock is probably their idea. I could be wrong about that, but I think it came from the Tories. And of course, when something's in place, as Gordon Brown was it.
I think Gordon Brown certainly did the winter fuel payments. I'll double check on the triple lock.
Yeah, and it's really hard to undo something once it's done, because people are, you're taking something away. And I understand that, but look, there's a limited amount of money in our country, as we all know, and I think we need to spread it around more fairly.
OK, that was Dale Vince speaking with Tom Swarbrick, the Labour donor, earlier on this week. What would you do if you were in the shoes of the Chancellor? Margaret in Dartford. Hello, Margaret.
Hello.
What do you think?
I look at all the cars that are around, they're increasing all the time. Why not increase the taxation on vehicles? Because people who own several vehicles can afford them. So why can't they pay more taxation?
Well, fuel duty's been frozen for a number of years, hasn't it? You think that should, go up?
I'm not talking about fuel duty, I'm talking about ownership of a vehicle. And you have to pay taxation on it annually, don't you? I think they should increase the taxation on the vehicles for everyone.
What, electric vehicles, all vehicles?
All vehicles. If you own a vehicle, no matter what, they should increase the taxation on it. That would be fair to everyone. If you own a vehicle or several vehicles, surely you can afford to pay more tax on your vehicle. That would be an amazing help with increasing the income.
Would you just not make it less affordable for people to be able to buy cars?
Yes, because we could do with less cars.
Yeah, but
when you think about it, the cars that keep increasing on the roads in 10 years or in 20 years' time, who knows what's going to happen? It's just shocking, and that might even decrease the number of ownership.
But in places of in certain areas of the country, Margaret, people need cars.
Yes, but we need a triple lock as well. But anyway, it's all right.
No, but if you're living in a rural community, by making a car more expensive, you're just penalising people who have to drive because the public transport in that area is so bad.
Yeah, I know all that, but you could put different conditions on it if you own more than one car for your use, maybe something like that. But it certainly needs to be looked at and investigated into, I believe.
Do you have a car?
Yes, I have one car. Well, I have one car, and I'm about to sell it actually. But
hold on. So you do have a car? You do have a car? You're going to sell it?
Yes, and I'll be happy to pay more for it. I'm just a pensioner. I'm not wealthy or anything like that. I'm a normal person. Hard-working. I've worked for 32 years in a career and all of that. So I'm just a normal person.
What do you think about what Rachel Reeves should do? I mean, you said about motor vehicles, which is certainly an idea, but with the IMF saying, really, the big spending things you have to do are either the triple lock or increase taxes, what would you do? Well,
you're increasing taxes in a way, aren't you? I live in a place where several households have got 3 vehicles, and I mean, it's their business and everything, but surely they can afford to pay more tax on their vehicle.
Thank you very much, Margaret. Margaret there in Dartford getting us started. What would you do if you had to make the decision as Rachel Reeves does? The IMF issuing this warning saying that you have to hike taxes Introduce charges to use the NHS or drop the triple lock guarantee. It's a tough decision. What one do you choose? 0345 6060 973.
Weekdays from 7 a.m.
So we don't know how many, and we don't know the cost.
Straight to the point.
Tell you what they're laughing at, those two. They're laughing at the law, and we're letting them.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
Inexcusable, shambolic failure.
Listen on Global Player or the new LBC app. Download it now from your app store. LBC.
Bring your pensions together with Pension Bee and take control of your retirement. Because when your pension is in a good place, you're in a good place. When investing, your capital is at risk.
Lotto's £11 million jackpot must be won this Saturday, or thousands of you will win a share of the prize. Lotto, play on app. Estimated jackpot, prizes rounded down to the nearest £1. Rules apply, 18+.
The longer days are here, and you know what that means. It's time for the Halfords Big Summer Sale. Grab up to 50...
Let's do this.
Donald Trump landing back in Britain for the first time since his re-election as
Please
US
mind
president. I watched Air Force One landing in Ayrshire with hundreds who came to see the spectacle.
That was amazing. The atmosphere was brilliant. So good. What an experience. Absolutely brilliant. It was great, yeah. Absolutely. Please watch the speed. Absolutely. And the crowd's been brilliant.
Oh, I think I was one of the first one to spot it. I said to everybody that it was coming in, and they all looked.
That's brilliant. It's good to see so many people here as well. Good turnout.
It's not every day you see Air Force One coming in here.
But it took just seconds after he walked down the steps to the runway for the custom controversial comments to begin.
You better get your act together. You're not going to have Europe anymore. You got to get your act together. And we, as you know, last month we had nobody entering our country. Nobody. Shut it down. And we took out a lot of bad people that got there with Biden.
Those comments providing an interesting backdrop for Sunday's meeting here in Scotland with the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, although his kinder words for the Prime Minister may make talking trade with him here on Monday a simpler process.
I like your Prime Minister. He's slightly more liberal than I am, as you've probably heard. But he's a good man. He got a trade deal done. And, they've been working on this deal for 12 years. He got it done. It's a good deal.
And that meeting is expected to take place where he was whisked off to in his motorcade last night, the Trump Turnberry Resort, a golf course which is now under lockdown in one of the biggest policing operations ever seen in Scotland. Hundreds of officers are going to be based there today as the President plays golf. We're told they are expecting some form of protest, and larger organised demonstrations are also going to be taking place this afternoon in both Edinburgh and in Aberdeen.
LBC Scotland correspondent Alan Zizinski. You can hear the very latest throughout the day here on LBC with Alan, who will be keeping us updated with the movements of the Donald. I see, by the way, JD Vance, you may have heard, is coming to the Cotswolds next month for his holiday. We've got Donald Trump over at the moment. Donald Trump's also coming back in September for his state visit. Do you see who else is in the UK at the moment from US politics fame? Kamala Harris is also in the Cotswolds. They love it in Britain, don't they? John's in Hull Beach on the subject of the economy. John, what do you think we should do, or Rachel, we should do?
Take the public service pensions, the private pensions, in other words, civil servants, National Health Service workers, and put a cap on. Because a big expenditure is the money that government pours into the pensions.
Public sector pensions.
That's right, and they're very high earners there, so if you put a cap on, you'll protect the very low-paid workers, but a lot of the money will be raised by the savings in the top end. The other thing is all luxury goods, such as aircraft travel, travelling on holidays.
Frequent flyers.
You put a tax on that. Basically, that's it.
It doesn't solve anything long term, does it? Just to put a tax on frequent flyers.
Push.
Does it, do you think?
Please watch the speed.
Or do you think it's too cheap to fly at the moment?
Well, it's a case of how you're going to raise money. The government is going to raise money to keep people in a basic standard of living.
Yeah. Would you be... I mean, Rachel Rees does have to dip into the sort of tax takings, and he's going to have to break a manifesto pledge. Do you think that would be more popular than scrapping the triple lock?
Caution. Please mind the speed.
Well, I'm not sure, because I don't have all the statistics and to how many people receive. But I would think that you would save more money by
Caution.
by
Please
putting a
watch
cap
the
on
speed.
pensions in all the public services. Just have a very low threshold, if you like. Have they explored that? I don't know if they've explored
Please mind
that,
the
but
speed.
that's what I would do. And people can afford to go on holidays. Why can't they pay a little bit more tax? By scrapping the triple lock, all you're doing is hitting the people. Because it's a basic pension, all it does is keeps abreast of inflation. So,
please watch the speed.
If you scrap that, then in fact you'll be cutting the pensions. So people's standard of living, the basic standard of living for a pension
please mind
is
the
going to go
speed.
down.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it, John. 0345 6060 973. Back to your calls on that in a moment. First, though, in a lot of the newspapers today, councils are to buy empty homes for migrants. Migrants could be housed in empty homes and properties bought by councils under government plans to reduce the number of asylum hotels. Ministers are seeking to partner to either buy a starving child clings to his mum in
Please mind the
victims
speed.
in Gaza pray the world can no longer ignore another day in Gaza hell. The Daily Express, stop this war on our family farms. Labour's attack on family farms is driving abattoirs to the point of ruin.
Caution.
Campaigners
Please watch the speed.
have warned. Mark's in Somerton, in Somerset. Hello, Mark.
Hello, Henry. Hi.
What do you think the Chancellor should do? Scrap the triple lock or raise taxes?
Well, neither of those things, really. I think she needs to look at, my real frustration with this government is they're looking down, and the sort of narrative is looking down. And the way I suggest that looking at is, number one, introduce these are ideas that have already been suggested in LBC, by the way. They're not necessarily my ideas, but I think they're worthy of note. One
Keep
is
right,
to
and then
adopt
turn
the
right.
American taxation system, whereby if you hold a British passport, you pay British taxes in full. So that would be one.
Turn right.
I'm obviously very happy for you to sort of dismantle these.
Well, no, I want to hear them.
Yeah, okay. And the second would be with the non-dom status, that if you own a property in this country, say worth over £1 million, then you are liable for full taxation in this country. Because one of the things about non-dom that sort of frustrates me
Please
is
mind the speed.
that people say, oh, right, we're going to leave the country, we're not going to sell our house, we're going to keep our house, but we're not going to pay taxes. So tying it somehow to property ownership as well. And I did a chat
Please watch the speed.
research, and it reckons that that would save
Keep right,
or generate
and then
somewhere
turn
between
right.
3 billion and 20 billion a year.
Turn
doing those
right.
two things. So then that's just, obviously that's not that's ChatGPT. So
Well, if we have a bank holiday, if the Lionesses win tomorrow, it's going to cost £2.4 billion. So if it raises £3 billion, we could do that to pay for a bank holiday.
Caution. Please mind the speed.
Be a nice patriotic way of doing it. Thank you, Mark. Interesting ideas in Somerton, in Somerset. More calls on that in a moment. What do you think the Chancellor should do in her current predicament? As the IMF says, you have to either charge people to use the NHS. I'm wholly opposed to that, by the way. Because once you start charging the wealthiest, it's always we charge the wealthiest to use the NHS. It's only a matter of time before the government needs to find a bit more money. They lower the thresholds, and then before you know it, they're paying for the NHS. Or most of us are paying for the NHS. The other option, scrapping the triple lock.
You have arrived at your
It's
destination.
unsustainable long term.
Your route guidance is now
But I do
finished.
also think she's probably going to have to raise taxes, which she said she wasn't going to do. VAT, national insurance, income tax, I'm not quite sure which one, but it's going to come in some form, isn't it? 0345 6060 973 after your suggestions of what you would do. Let's move away from that, though, for a moment. And I mentioned earlier on, yet more bad news for the high streets. The high street fashion giant River Island is on the brink of collapse, with hundreds of people set to lose their jobs within weeks. Unless an unlikely last-minute deal can be agreed, the retailer is set to shut up shop for good following a slump in trading. They've proposed closing down 33 stores across the UK. A further 71 shops could also see their rent slashed and a series of debts written off by the company as part of a rescue deal. And, of course, Brewdog on the hospitality sector announced plans for 10 pubs to shut as well. It doesn't sound like good news for the high street. Tom Holder is a spokesman